She didn't even look at me, just brushed past like I was a sales rep trying to hand her a coupon. I'd waited behind two customers, cash withdrawal slip in hand, just to have my own sister laugh in my face like I was some broke loser begging for scraps. My name's Paul. I'm 58 years old. I live in Lewisburg, Pennsylvania. Never been flashy, never tried to be. I've spent my whole life keeping my head down and fixing what's broken. Not just machines, anything. Leaky faucets, buggy code, busted engines, old wiring. I was the youngest of three. Dean became a lawyer in Philly. Brooke married a guy who sells insurance to hospitals and acts like he owns the state. Me? I got into IT when the world still thought floppy disks were high tech. Worked my way up through local gigs, side contracts, and state jobs. Nothing big, but I earned every cent. In my family, though, none of that ever counted. I learned that early. When I was 12, I carved a watch stand for my dad in shop class. Real oak, sanded smooth, stained just right. I wrapped it up and gave it to him for his birthday. He unwrapped it, gave it one quick glance, then asked Dean what stock he was watching that week. Brooke gave him cufflinks, store-bought. He stood up and hugged her. My stand sat on the end table for 3 days before Mom moved it to the basement. They didn't insult me, not directly, just looked through me, like I was there to change their tires or fix the cable box, not share a meal. So I stopped trying. I built my own life on the side, quiet, private, steady, no drama, just peace. The only one who ever treated me like I mattered was Grandpa Walter, my dad's dad. A quiet man. He wasn't warm exactly, but he listened, never interrupted. When he passed, he left me this old metal key in a cedar box. No label, no context, just a note. For the one who always listens, you'll know when to use it. I didn't ask questions. I didn't tell anyone. I just kept the box in my nightstand and figured it was symbolic or something. Quick note, before we dive in deeper, share which city or country you're watching from. But then last winter, Brooke humiliated me, loudly, in front of a bank full of strangers, all over $200. That's when I remembered the box, and for the first time in decades, I stopped fixing things quietly. I started planning. The heat inside the truck was blasting, but my hands were still shaking, not from the cold. I'd taken hits before, plenty, from bosses, clients, even the occasional pissed-off neighbor. But there was something about being torn down by your own sister, in public, over a couple $100, that landed different. I stared out the windshield, watched frost creeping along the edges of the glass like it was trying to close me in. All I'd wanted was to help Mr. Sanders. He called me that morning, 82 years old, retired vet. His voice was cracking from the cold. Said his furnace kicked the bucket again, and the HVAC guy wanted $200 up front. His Social Security check wouldn't land till Friday. "You good for it, Paul?" he asked. "Don't worry about it," I told him. "I'll handle it." I had the money. That wasn't the issue. I just liked doing things in person when I could. Paper trail, peace of mind, no app errors. So I drove down to Oak Bridge Bank, like I had a dozen times over the years. Place hadn't changed. Beige walls, potted fake plants, fluorescent lights humming. I walked in, pulled a number, waited behind a young couple arguing softly about some overdraft charge. Brooke sat at the far end in her little glass-walled office, pretending not to see me, but I caught the smirk the second she looked up. I stepped to the teller window when my number flashed. Before I could say a word, I heard her heels. That click, click, click across the tile like she was hosting a damn parade. Well, she said, her voice high and sharp. Look who rolled in from the hardware aisle. I didn't rise to it, didn't flinch. Just need to pull out $200 from savings. She gave a short, fake laugh. Savings? You sure there's even anything in there? We don't usually deal in pocket change, you know. The room went still. I felt the air shift. One guy coughed. Another looked down at his phone like he didn't want to be part of it. The teller froze, fingers hovering over the keyboard. That hot, sick feeling hit my chest. My ears burned. I didn't argue, didn't say a word. I just nodded, turned around, and walked out. I sat in the truck, keys still in my hand. I could have Venmo'd the guy. I could have Zelled it. I could have driven straight to the repair shop and swiped my card. But that wasn't the point. The point was how she made me feel. Small, like I was a joke. Like I was 12 again, holding that watch stand, while everyone else got praised and hugged. And she didn't care. That's what really burned. She looked at me like I was beneath her, like helping someone made me pathetic. I stared down at the gear shift, jaw tight. That's when the thought hit. Not loud, not some dramatic aha moment. Just a quiet click, like a puzzle piece sliding into place. Brooke could laugh all she wanted, but she had no idea who she just embarrassed. I turned the ignition, drove home in silence, and went straight to the kitchen, poured water in the kettle, dumped a scoop of grounds into the old French press. The house was quiet, just the way I liked it. No TV, no voices, just the sound of boiling water and my own heartbeat still running hot. I sat at the kitchen table, cracked open the laptop, and typed in my local passphrase. They thought I was some tired tech guy with rusty skills and a basic savings account. But the truth was buried under 15 years of silence. My grandfather left me $9,800 and some change. Everyone else got jewelry or stock portfolios. I got that number and the key in the box. And while they laughed about it, while Brooke rolled her eyes at the funeral and Dean made some comment about me probably spending it on tools, I went home and got to work. I'd always had a thing for patterns, logic, quiet solutions. I wasn't flashy, but I could see the rhythm inside chaos, so I built something. Started with a basic program, nothing fancy, just a tracker for micro movements in mid-cap market behavior. I kept feeding it data, back-tested, adjusted. It got smarter, leaner, stronger. I named the core Rustwake. Took me 3 years to get it right. Then I wrapped it inside a legal entity, an anonymous investment shell I registered out of state. Called it Keyframe 17. I ran every update myself. No partners, no leaks. Over time, it grew, quietly. 5 figures turned to 6, 6 to 7, then 8, then more. I reinvested every dollar, diversified through custodial management groups, so my name stayed buried. Not one person in my family ever suspected a thing. They just assumed I lived small because I had to. I sipped my coffee, logged into the terminal, and queued up the audit script. That morning, I wasn't checking balances. I was scanning allocations, reviewing where Keyframe's portfolios had been delegated for custodial handling after our last reshuffle. Halfway down the report, my eyes locked on a new name, Easthold Financial, newly absorbed division of Oakbridge Holdings. I clicked, pulled up the transfer dates, scanned the routing trails. One of Keyframe's custodial managers had migrated assets into Easthold's back-end services as part of a merger. And Oakbridge Bank, the one where my sister strutted around with her fake designer bags and condescending tone, was now sitting under my umbrella. She worked for a place that handled my money, my fund. She reported to a structure that ultimately relied on me staying happy and invested. I sat back in the chair, stared at the screen, and let it sink in. This wasn't about the $200 anymore. That was just the spark. What Brooke didn't know, what no one knew, was that I'd been quiet by choice, not by lack of ability. And I'd just been handed the perfect opportunity, not just to get even, to get clear, to clean house. I clicked out of the audit window, opened my secure line, and called Carl. He answered on the second ring. Talk to me. I need a corporate risk reassessment pulled on Oakbridge Holdings. Quiet and fast, I said. Set up a sit-down with their district VP. Tell them a primary client is considering an emergency pullout. Codename, Keyframe 17. I'll be there. Carl didn't ask questions. He never did. That's why I paid him well. You got it. When? Tomorrow morning. Click. I closed the laptop, rinsed my coffee mug, and took the trash out like it was any other day. Next morning, I dressed like I always did. Dark jeans, clean flannel shirt, boots that didn't shine. No suit, no flash. I didn't need to play their game. When I pulled into the bank parking lot, it felt colder than usual. Sky was steel gray. Wind sharp. I walked in through the glass doors like I had 2 days earlier, but this time, a man in a tailored navy suit sprang up from the lobby couch before I even reached the counter. "Mr. Rains?" he asked, half out of breath. "I'm Marshall Denton, District VP. Thank you so much for coming. Let's head to a private space." From the corner of my eye, I saw her, Brooke. She was sitting at her desk, going through some paperwork. But when she heard my name and saw that man nearly tripping over himself to greet me, she stood. Her eyes narrowed. She started walking toward us, but slowed down as she clocked the tension in Denton's face, and then mine. Her smile flickered. "This way, Mr. Rains," Denton said, motioning toward the office behind her. Brooke turned and followed us in. We sat. She stayed standing. Denton looked nervous. He tried to keep his voice even. So, we understand there's a situation involving one of our branches? There is, I said. Keyframe 17 will be pulling its entire portfolio unless we resolve our concern with personnel conduct. Denton blinked. Excuse me? Brooke looked between us. Wait, what? Yes, I said. Specifically, the behavior of this branch's manager. Denton's head whipped toward Brooke. What kind of behavior are we talking about here? I turned to her and spoke clearly. 2 days ago, I came in here to withdraw $200. I stood in line like anyone else. When I got to the counter, your branch manager came out of her office, made fun of the way I looked, questioned whether I had money in my account, and made sure the entire room heard it. Brooke's mouth opened, then closed. She glanced at Denton. He looked at me. That was you? I nodded once. Yeah, that was me. You humiliated the guy who signs your paycheck, and you didn't even know it. She staggered a step back. Paul, wait, you're Keyframe? Been Keyframe since day one. I'm the reason this bank saw a 7-figure deposit spike last quarter. I'm the reason your district's growth metrics stayed above water. And now, I'm the reason your job's over. Brooke went pale. Her face lost every drop of color. Her knees buckled and she dropped into the chair behind her, hands shaking. I didn't know. I didn't mean, you didn't look like, I didn't need to look like anything, I said flatly. You made a choice. You always have. I just finally decided to respond. She started crying, right there in front of us. Snot, tears, shaking hands. Please, Paul, I didn't mean to hurt you. I was just joking. I swear. Please don't do this. I looked at Denton. The transfer stands. He exhaled slowly, eyes still on Brooke. Understood. He turned toward her. Brooke, you're terminated. Effective immediately. HR will contact you by noon. You'll be escorted out by security. She gasped. Wait, Marshall, no. I've worked here for... This isn't a discussion, he said coldly. You humiliated a primary client, one of our largest, and you've put our district at risk. I stood, pulled my jacket straight. We're done here. Brooke didn't look up. She couldn't. By the time I got home, my phone was already blowing up. Dean, what the hell happened at the bank? Call me. 2 missed calls from Mom. 1 voicemail from Brooke's husband, Darren, his voice low and dramatic. Paul, listen, we need to talk. Brooke's not doing well. You really blindsided her, man. I didn't reply to any of it. I just set the phone down, reheated some leftover stew, and ate in silence. Same as always. Around 10, the house line rang. Only 1 person ever used that number. I let it go to voicemail. She called again. 3rd time, I picked up. Paul, what did you do to your sister? Mom's voice hit me like a slap. She's destroyed. She's barely spoken all day. Do you understand what kind of position you've put her in? I didn't say anything, just waited. She lost her job, her benefits, everything, just like that. How could you do this to her? There it was. Not a single word about what she did. Not, are you okay? Not even a pause to ask why it happened. You don't think maybe you're overreacting a little? She went on. This isn't how family handles things. I leaned against the counter, staring at the dark window. She humiliated me, I said. In public, on purpose. She didn't mean anything by it. I almost laughed. Right. She's your sister, Paul. And I'm your son, I said, sharper than I expected. But I guess that part's never mattered as much. There was a long silence on the other end. Finally, I said, tell everyone to come over Sunday. I've got something to show you. She hesitated. Who's everyone? You, Dad, Dean, Brooke too. Paul, I'm not asking. Click. I didn't hear from any of them for the next 2 days. Quiet, like the eye of a storm. But I could feel it building. The whispers, the blame, the same old guilt grenade they'd been tossing around since I was a kid. They'd shown me who they were. This time, I was going to show them who I'd become. Sunday came, cold and overcast. Leaves blowing down the gravel driveway as their SUV crunched up slowly, like they were afraid to get too close too fast. They expected the little duplex I used to rent near the bypass. What they got instead was a modern ranch tucked back behind the tree line near Lake Winola, black steel roof, cedar trim, stone porch, paid for in full 3 years ago. I watched them step out one by one, faces tight. Dean adjusted his coat like he wasn't sure if he was underdressed. My mom kept looking around like someone was going to come out and tell her it was a joke. Dad just stared at the house, mouth set in that same old disapproving line. Brooke stayed in the car for an extra 10 seconds. She finally got out, eyes red behind her sunglasses. I opened the door before they could knock. "Come in," I said. They walked in slow, like tourists. No one said a word, just wide eyes and twitchy hands. They looked at the vaulted ceilings, the real hardwood floors, the fireplace flickering in the corner. They took it all in like they couldn't believe someone like me could live in a place like this. Dinner was already on the table: grilled chicken, roasted potatoes, sweet cornbread. Plates set, water poured, just enough for everyone. They sat. No one reached for food. Finally, Dad cleared his throat. "All right, Paul. You've made your point. You're rich. You've embarrassed your sister. Now fix it." Dean nodded like he was co-signing a legal motion. Brooke stayed quiet. My mom looked like she'd been crying for hours. I stood up, walked to the hallway, and came back with a thick folder, laid it on the table. No drama, just facts. "Since we're all here," I said, "let's talk about Grandpa's trust." Dean shifted in his seat. Dad frowned. Brooke looked down at her lap. I opened the folder, pulled out the first set of statements, and laid them out in front of them. "These are withdrawal logs from the trust account Grandpa left behind. Starting about 6 years ago, small amounts began vanishing. Just a few hundred here, 1,000 there. Always under generic codes: maintenance fees, legal retainers, invoice settlements. But they weren't real." Dean stiffened. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying," I said, looking straight at Brooke, "that someone was funneling money using false invoices, fake contractor charges, phony repair claims. Most of them linked to your home address, your HOA, your damn golf club, Brooke." She shook her head immediately. "No, that's not... Paul, come on, that's not fair." "Shut up," Dad snapped, turning to her. "Is it true?" I don't know what he's talking about. Darren handles our finances. I pulled out the last 2 documents. "This one's a receipt for teak patio furniture, delivered to your house last year, paid through the trust account under a groundskeeping equipment label." Her face collapsed. She knew I had her. "And this," I said, sliding the final page forward, "is a charge to consulting services. Same date as a weekend at the Pocono Springs Spa for you and Darren." Dean looked like he wanted to crawl into the floor. "This fund wasn't just for you," I said calmly. "It was meant to help all of us if we ever needed it. Emergency medical, housing, support. You used it to pad your lifestyle." Brooke started crying, voice cracking. "I didn't know it was wrong. Darren said it was..." I cut her off. "Don't care." Mom finally spoke. "Paul, this is a family matter. We can deal with this privately." "Too late for that," I said. "I stayed quiet for years because I didn't need attention. I did what I always do, kept things running, handled problems, fixed what I could. But this?" I pointed at the folder. "This isn't just being disrespectful. This is theft." My dad folded his arms. "So what now? You gonna sue your sister?" I looked him in the eye. "No, I'm gonna finish what Grandpa started." I stood at the head of the table, folder still in my hand. "I'm done being the backup plan," I said. "I'm done letting you people treat me like a joke." My father opened his mouth to speak. I shut him down with a raised hand. Didn't even look at him when I did it. "This isn't a family anymore. It's a liability, and I'm closing it out." I handed each of them a packet, 4 pages, stapled. Their names printed across the top. Legal severance of all shared ties to Grandpa's trust. Revoked access. Final notification. "I've moved the remaining funds into a foundation," I said. "It'll fund veterans' housing projects, community repairs, real work, not new handbags, not golf trips, not flight upgrades." My mom's face went slack, like she'd aged 10 years in 5 seconds. Dean sat stiff like his spine had turned to stone. Brooke? She didn't even reach for the papers. She just stared at the table like she could sink through it. No one said a word. I walked to the front door, held it open. They followed, one by one, quiet, defeated, like kids sent home from school. No hugs, no parting lines, no fake forgiveness, just finality. When the door shut behind them, the silence wasn't heavy. It was clean. These days, I spend my time fixing heaters, leaky sinks, busted door frames for people who actually appreciate it. I joined a volunteer repair program for elderly homeowners around the county. First job on the list? Mr. Sanders' furnace. Fully replaced, cost covered, no questions. Now, every time I stop by, he hands me a fresh batch of cornbread and tells me about the war like it just happened last month. I listen. That old key Grandpa left me? I had it mounted in a shadow box, framed next to the original trust letter. They hang in the little office off my garage, where I still run the Rustwake engine in peace, just to keep the fun sharp. I don't need their respect anymore. I earned my own. Funny how $200 can show you exactly who people are. But walking away, that's what finally gave me peace.